Hello everybody, today we're doing a patio ceiling. A section of the ceiling fell down, old age. The old sheetrock was held up by nails, drywall nails, so we're going to have to cut out this area. It calls for about 2.5, 2.25 sheets, so it's real easy for us to do something like this on a patio. We just back right up to it, pull the sheetrock out, and get to work. But basically going to have to cut it out square. It's easy for us to cut it out square since it's going to break right at the seam, the 4-foot seam, because sheetrock's 4 foot by 8 foot. So we're just going to cut it back, and then we're going to pull all the screws and all the nails, and then we're going to install 2 sheets of drywall, get it all hung, plenty of screws. And I'm going to turn around, scrape all the joints, then do a fiberglass mesh tape. Basically get it ready for mudding. It's pretty simple, watch and learn video. I don't know if you need me to tell you every minute what I'm doing. You can just basically watch this and know what to do just by watching us. Simple job, 2.5 sheets. Got some help on this. If you're hanging full sheets overhead, you definitely want to have a helping hand to get it lift up the sheetrock. 1/2-inch sheets, not terribly heavy, but it is awkward trying to hold an 8-foot section above your head by yourself. So it's always good to have a helping hand whenever you're doing full sheets overhead. And also, you'll know we lay it out. We don't just lay 2 8-foot sections together. You kind of stagger it out, kind of like a brick pattern. If you don't stagger out sheetrock, you're going to get what's called a railroad butt joint. Just basically, it's a long butt joint, 8 foot long or longer butt joint that creates a lot of work. We're already tying this into the old ceiling on the joint, and then the butt joints we're tying in. So it's already going to be some mud work right there. These old patio ceilings, carports, when it's exposed to the elements, the heat, the cold, everything, it takes a lot of wear and tear off the old sheetrock. Old sheetrock back in the day, they just tack nailed it up with nails. So after a while, it just gives way and falls down. That's why all the new sheetrock now we use screws. At least I use screws on everything I hang. Keeps everything nice and tight. But when you put the screws in, you just want to add screws every 3 or 4 inches. Just plenty of screws, nice and tight. I'm using 1/2-inch sheetrock here, so I'm just going to use 1.25 or 1.5 screws is all you need. I've seen guys always use 2-inch, 3-inch screws for sheetrock. Sometimes longer is not better. You just need it to go through the sheetrock and catch the stud. You don't need it to go all the way through the stud. It's just making more work for yourself. So standard for 1/2-inch sheetrock, we use 1.25 coarse screws for wood, and of course fine thread for metal framing. There's different types of sheetrock too you can use outside. They do have a soffit board. I have someone that told me they want to hang green board on the ceiling. Never hang green board on ceilings. You can do a simple research on the internet and they'll tell you why. Green board has more air pockets in it. It's a lighter material, so it doesn't do well when you're hanging whole sheets on ceilings. It's okay if you do a little area, but whole sheets, you shouldn't use green board. You can do your own research on that. So it's just something I don't do. Someone asks for it, I'll tell them why not. But some people insist. They think green board is best because they say it doesn't mold. All that is just a spray they put on the green paper so it doesn't attract mold. Kind of like a biocide, bad chemical stuff. So you do your research on what you want to put up. But we're just using regular sheetrock. That's all the homeowner needs. Here is old carport, old house from the 1960s. So just hanging up the old sheetrock. Easy job. 2 guys to do. You can get it all hung in probably 1.5 hours, 2 hours, no problem. And then you can turn around and get it first coated. A simple, easy video. Just doing some sheetrock in here. A couple sheets of drywall. Hang it. Get it all ready. And you'll notice I use a spray glue too. This spray glue is like a red glue that I use. It's for drywall corner bead. That's an optional product. The only reason I use that is because I spray it on there and it tacks the fiberglass mesh in place. So that way the fiberglass doesn't fall down. It's especially when you're trying to tape over old sheetrock that's dusty. It doesn't like to bond to dust. So I just do that, tack it up to that spray glue. It's an optional product. It's just like one of those secrets of the trade thing that I buy it and I use it because I like to just tack the fiberglass in place. The fiberglass is going to do the same with or without it. So it's just a tacking preference that I do. That's why I use it. But you'll notice how the sheetrock's staggered out in place. That way we can do two different butt joints, and it just fades in better that way instead of one big crown joint. This one's going to be really tight, so he's just going to use a roto zip on the edge. You can also pull the sheet down and just try to cut down the edge with the razor, but it's easy for us with the roto zip on hand just to tack up the sheetrock and then roto zip it out so it fits nicely, and then add plenty of screws to tighten it all up. Also, your outside edge, you want to add screws to tighten up the old sheetrock. We always put a few screws on the outside edge, maybe even go to the next stud truss and add a few screws just to tighten up the old sheetrock. Some people want to go through and tighten up the sheetrock on the whole patio carport. That's fine and dandy, but realize you're going to have to patch each screw hole and fix everything, primer and paint. So sometimes going overboard like that's not really worth it. If you're going to go through that much trouble, you might as well just pull down all the sheetrock and re-sheetrock the whole patio so you know it's secure and new. A simple video. Hope you like it. This is going to be part 1. And then after this, we'll do a part 2 video of mudding and texturing. And then I might make a third video, just a full video. So there'll be 3 videos, just of this, getting it sheetrock, tape, coated, and texture. I'll probably get 3 videos out of it, so it's not such a long video. Well, hope you like it. Thank you. Alright, so everything's fiberglass, all the screws look good, everything's ready. So now we can put away our hanging tools, whatever. And basically we're going to turn around and get this all coated out. Then I'm going to let it set up, then I'm going to second coat it, and then we're going to follow through with the texture. I'm using a quick set hot mud. I don't recommend you using a hot mud. The only reason I'm using it is because we finish these jobs in one trip. Sheetrock, tape coated, and textured all in one trip. But if you're a newbie and you never really mudded before, just stick to an all-purpose joint compound. Joint compounds have to dry overnight in between coats, and you usually sand in between coats, either with an 80 grit or 150 grit sandpaper. Sand in between coats, and then follow through with the second coat. Let it dry. Sand it. Do a third coat if need be. Then you can turn around texture. But this is a hot mud quick set technique that we're doing here with 5 minute. I'm using 5 minute, 20 minute, 40 minute, 90 minute. I'm working on stilts. So since I'm working on stilts, my help is just going to mix me pan by pan. It's also easier if you just maybe mix like a half a bucket of mud and just have it all ready up for you. And that way you can just scoop it out of the bucket. I don't think this job's going to call for a lot of mud. Instead of pulling out all the drill tools and making hooking up the hose to wash up the tools. We're just going to mix pan by pan. It takes a little more effort, but I got help, so why not? Since I'm doing all the stilt work, he can do something. He can mix up the mud. Once I got the fiberglass in, some guys like to pre-fill before they fiberglass, but I'm just striking in the fiberglass. I do this on most of my repairs. If you watched a few of my patching videos, you'll see that I strike in the fiberglass mesh tape. What that does is pushing the mud inside the grooves and the gaps of the actual tape. It gets inside the sheetrock gaps. It's a good pre-fill technique, so I'm getting it all in the nooks and crannies and crevices of fiberglass instead of just coating over it. I'm getting it pushed inside, getting that mud. So basically, once you get everything pre-filled, striked in with the 5-minute or regular mud, you'll have to let it start setting up. If you striked it in pretty heavy, you're going to have to kind of slick out your pre-fill area. But since I did a tight strike in, I'm just going to follow through and I'm going to do a nice, healthy first coat. I'm coating all that seams, all the rows of nails, and basically the area that's tied in here is going to need an extra mud coat, thicker coat, because it's tying into the new to the old. Technique we do, we just mix it in the pan. Like I said, you can mix it in a bucket. This is just an easier technique, just trying to keep all the tools, pulling out everything we own out of the trailer, so we don't have to pull out a mixer, wash station, all that. Sometimes it's easier just mix pan at a time, especially when you're dealing with hot muds. If you're dealing with a 5-minute, definitely pan at a time. But we could have did a 20-minute and just mix like a half a bucket of 20-minute, and then it would have set up, But sometimes it takes a little longer than 20 minutes to set up. So we know it gets a strong finish when we use these 5-minute quick set muds. Like I said, this is a professional grade material, so just stick to joint compounds if you don't know what you're doing. Basically, get everything nice and coated. If you use the joint compound after you get everything coated, you're just going to have to let it set up overnight. Once it dries, then you turn around and sand it. With this, you'll see after it sets up that I'm going to go through with a wet sponge and a 6-inch knife and basically slick it out. It's kind of like a wet sanding technique. You're basically taking your 6-inch knife and a wet sponge and you're just slicking over everything. It's taking off the extra mud. It's pushing it where it needs to go. It takes a little more time doing slick out jobs. You do a few of these and then you kind of get the hang of it. So it's something you don't watch this video and you think you can slick it out. It takes working with the materials, manipulating the materials. It's kind of an artwork when you're kind of forming the materials and basically taking off the materials where it's not needed and keeping the materials where it's needed. So it just takes practice working with these hot muds. That's why I recommend just stick to a joint compound. But basically, we're going to go through here, same thing, going to get it second coated, then slick it out, get everything ready, and then we're just going to follow through and do a texture. The texture on here is going to be what's called a skip trowel. Depending on your job, you might not have a skip trowel, you might have something else. If you want to leave this smooth, I just recommend maybe do a tight coat of joint compound over everything and just call it smooth. But basically, the process is the same. Get everything one coat, 2 coats. I could get away with 2 coat in my work because I do it every time. But sometimes you might need a 3rd coat. And if it still looks rough and deep, even follow through with a tight 4th coat. No problem. We're going to get everything coated here. Get everything slicked out. 2 coats slicked out and then texture. So it's pretty much watch and learn video. We don't have a lot of noises going on because it's 2 guys working together on a job site. And I don't want them to block me for stuff they shouldn't hear. So just follow along, watch and learn. You're just seeing the process. And I also have a ton of other videos on my channel. Drywall patching, stress cracks, repairs. So you can watch a few videos and kind of see the drywall repair process. This is my process. Of course, everybody has their own way and everybody thinks they're better and everybody has an opinion. But this is the way we do it. I actually have to work every day or I don't eat. So this is what I do. But yeah, I'm going to follow along and get this all textured up. Once this patio is all textured up, they're just going to have to let the texture dry at least a day or so. And then some textures need sanding, but since this is a patio, they didn't really sand the existing skip trowel. So They just let the texture dry a day or so and then primer it. Always primer new drywall, either with a PVA drywall sealer or a Kills 2 latex. Those two work good. If you have a carport, exposed carport like this, or even a garage or a patio, I recommend just putting a fresh coat of paint on the whole ceiling. The paint will help protect it from the elements. Sheetrock, if it's going to be exposed to the elements, heat, hot, cold, weathering, wind, it's going to get beat up really bad. So the only thing you can do to it to protect it's fresh paint. It's not like a house that can go 20, 30 years without being painted. Drywall, I would say, if you do have it on an outside carport like this or a patio, keep an eye on it maybe every 5 to 10 years, maybe the 8th year. That's when I would recommend doing a paint. And I really don't recommend doing flat paints either on anything that's exposed outside. I would go with a gloss paint, semi-gloss, something glossier, heavy-duty, expensive exterior paint, because that way it gives you some protection value in it. And plus, with the good, expensive exterior paint, it's not watered down, so when you're trying to paint something overhead, it's not making a big old mess if you're rolling the paint out. It's pretty easy. 2 sheets of drywall here, got it all hung, taped, coated, and textured. I think this job between the two of us took less than 3 hours, and that included picking up the sheetrock from the supplier. But pretty easy. And this is just a patio that it fell down because the old sheetrock was old and brittle and is tacked up with nails. So this is screwed up, added screws on the outside edge, new sheetrock, coated it with the hot mud, so it's a strong material. So this should last a very long time, especially if they put a high quality paint on it. But I hope you like this video. Just watch and learn. That's pretty much it. Thank you.